those vaccinations continue every single day. We are currently at 79.1% of Victorians are being fully dosed, fully vaccinated. As we know, those numbers are usually a couple of days in arrears in terms of the upload to the Commonwealth Air database. So we're very confident that we're on or about the 80% mark double dose vaccination. There were 22,455 vaccines administered yesterday in our statewide hubs. And again, can I thank all those amazing teams of vaccinators out there all across the state in GP surgeries, community pharmacy, and our various state clinics for the fantastic work they do every single day. Currently in hospital, we have 747 Victorians in hospital today with COVID, of whom 135 are in intensive care and 83 of them are on a ventilator. And we send our very best wishes to them with their ongoing recovery. I'm also sad to confirm that 11 Victorians have been reported as passing away in the last 24 hours. These are Victorians ranging between the ages of 65 and 85. Of course, we send our deepest condolences to their families and to their loved ones at this very difficult time. In terms of testing, 68,484 tests processed yesterday, slightly down on our normal numbers of late. Obviously, we did see a number of our testing sites close yesterday. Around 30 sites had to shut down with various bits of weather work, but they're all now back up and running and providing ongoing testing, and there's plenty of capacity in the system today. So if you weren't able to get to your nearest testing site yesterday, then please do so today. If you have symptoms, you must please continue to get tested as soon as you possibly can. In terms of cases, 1,355 new cases in Victoria reported in the last 24 hours. That's the lowest number we've seen for the majority of this month. I think 2nd of October was the last time we had a number in that kind of ballpark. But still over 21,000 active cases in the state, 21,095 active cases of coronavirus across the state. And again, a very similar story that we've seen now over many weeks. 2/3 of those cases are aged under 40, and 1/3 of those cases are aged under 20, and 18% of the cases reported today are under the age of 10. This continues to be cases predominantly in our unvaccinated communities and predominantly affecting younger Victorians. So please, particularly for those people in their 20s, go out and get vaccinated. That is your best, in fact, your only real protection against the impact of COVID. And in doing so, you will massively help us reduce the ongoing spread of cases across the state. We're also seeing an upswing in those cases in regional Victoria. 280 cases today, of the cases today in regional Victorian locations. Over 20% now of the cases reported now in regional Vic. A week ago, that was around 14%. A week before that, it was under 10%. So we are seeing this predicted increase of cases in regional Victoria. And of course, now with the very welcome opening up of or easing of restrictions, the reunification of the state, the ability of all Victorians to come back into Melbourne and for Melburnians to come back out into regional Victoria, this is a time where we will expect to see ongoing spread and movement around of cases across our community. So getting tested is going to be important, but also particularly in our regional Victorian locations, it's going to be really important to stay right on top of those symptoms at a very early stage. In terms of the major ones for me to call out today, in the Latrobe Valley, we've seen 18 cases in Latrobe City today. Now just under 400 active cases in the Latrobe Valley, 396. We are seeing, though, a very welcome increase in the vaccination rates, particularly in the Latrobe Valley. That was always a little bit behind the curve, but now over 93% of people in that community have been first dose vaccinated, 93.4% for the details of those amongst you. And second doses are now getting on to 72.8%. And I had an opportunity to check into our vaccination hub in Morwell on Thursday. Just phenomenal work being done there. And to show really kind of how far we're reaching with our vaccination programs being delivered by our local Aboriginal controlled health organisation and the team at Star Health Community Health. In that day, we had a team down there for 4 or 5 days doing tens of vaccinations a day. But those tens of vaccinations, the 31 they did on Thursday, are all critically important steps in protecting some very vulnerable members of our community. And my thanks not only to the team who were at the Morwell vaccination hub, but all those small pop-up sites across the state who are doing that really vital work of reaching people who otherwise would not get vaccinated. In Albury-Wodonga, we also have 11 cases today, just under 300 active cases now on the Wodonga side of the border, 288. We have seen a significant, obviously big testing program there over the last week or so. Around 5,500 tests done in the last week in Wodonga, and we continue to send and deploy more testing resources down there, including the setting up of a 4-lane testing site, additional walk-in centres to support that ongoing community outbreak. I should note that about 95% of people in Wodonga have had their first dose vaccination, and the second rate is already over 80%. So Wodonga as a whole is a well-protected, a well-vaccinated community, but of course this highlights we'll see these small outbreaks or outbreaks particularly impacting unvaccinated communities and a very high attack rate within those communities. We're also working very closely with our colleagues in New South Wales Health, particularly around a bit of a schools response, and there will be a significant number of rapid antigen tests made available over the weekend, particularly to the school communities in both Albury and in Wodonga, to help track down and identify any other areas of transmission that we might have. Finally, for me, or two more for me, I'll just go up to the northwest. Swan Hill, 10 cases today, with around, again, 60 active cases. So a small outbreak connected, of course, to the larger outbreak in Mildura. But again, vaccination levels high and a lot of work happening there. And particularly a big help to, or a big call out to MVAC for the work that they're doing up there to support their community. And finally, Mildura, 30 cases today. Again, really significant increases in the vaccination rates in Mildura over recent weeks. Again, phenomenal work done by Madas and many others, and we'll continue to do all the work to support our Sunraysia community at this time. In terms of vaccination, again, can I really now, with the phase of vaccination we're in now, it's fantastic that we're at or very close to the 80% double dose vaccination levels. That's been a phenomenal achievement all across the state of so many GPs, community pharmacists, the various state clinics and the various outreach centres. But the job's not done yet. We have to push on. It's great that we've got over 92% of Victorians now first dose vaccinated. We really want to convert that into being fully protected, and we're going to move as hard as we can to get to that 90% threshold now and a further easing of restrictions. And the sooner we can bring those vaccinations forward, the quicker we can get to that 90% threshold, the quicker we can ease those remaining restrictions we still see across Victoria, although clearly a lot fewer than only 24 hours ago. I'd like a particular call out to VACCHO and all of our Aboriginal controlled health organisations all across the state for the phenomenal work they're doing to work so carefully and sensitively with people in their community to ensure that people get protected with the vaccine. I'm meeting the team at GJAC again on Thursday out in Bairnsdale, the phenomenal work of the Regional Health Service in that part of the community and the work of East Gippsland Council to provide that confidence and that ability for people to come forward and get vaccinated. Those are the critical final steps we now all need to take to make sure that vaccination really reaches all of our communities properly. There's also, of course, for those of us in our teens and 20s, I suspect, with the great excitement of Halloween. We've also got a bit of a Halloween theme running at some of our vaccination centres today. So if you've been too much of a scaredy cat to come forward and get vaccinated so far, then please jump down to the exhibition building or anywhere else today, grab a dose of pumpkin, do whatever you need to do, but please just get vaccinated. Because ultimately, if you want to go out and keep partying, if you want to go to the clubs and pubs that are now increasingly open, if you want to go back to work, you're going to have to get vaccinated. And the sooner you get that done, the better and the safer it'll be for you and for all of your mates. Finally, COVID safety remains and is probably now more important than ever. I know all of us would have enjoyed different aspects of the easing of restrictions, whether you're getting haircuts, which is probably not something that Andrew and I need to worry too much about, but whether you're going out and enjoying the many things that are now possible in both Melbourne and in regional Victoria, please remember that those basic COVID safe behaviours are so important. So if you've not yet been vaccinated, you're overdue. You really must get it done now because you will be left behind. If you've got symptoms, please continue to get tested. We have literally thousands of people across the state working today and tomorrow and on Tuesday to continue to support that testing effort and to make sure that you get the support you need to get that testing done, because by finding those remaining positive cases, we can minimise that onward spread and we can keep the fantastic easing of restrictions that we've been able to deliver. And particularly with Derby Day, with the Sydney Mire Music Bowl, with all the excitement around the surf coast and the beaches, please just remember those basic things. You will have an additional option from Monday. Rapid antigen tests will be more widely available, certainly through our major supermarkets. So my thanks to particularly Coles and Woolies for their activity in that space. For the sake of $10 or so, you'll be able to get some rapid antigen tests and stick them in a drawer at home, because if you do feel symptomatic and you don't want to come to a testing centre, then you can just use a rapid antigen test to provide you that extra bit of reassurance that either you're okay or maybe you're not okay. Clearly, any positive test with a rapid antigen test needs to be backed up with one of our PCRs. But again, these are all additional tools that become more possible. And as we start to move around, if you're about to go to your holiday home in Fairhaven, there's sticking a couple of rapid antigen tests in the glove box on the off chance you don't feel great. They're all additional things that you now have an option to do to protect yourself that little bit better. Finally, I'll hand over now to Andrew Chris to talk about the wild weather. Can I thank all those teams of volunteers out there over the last couple of days who've been doing heroic work, not only to support their communities, but also to support our health teams out there. My thanks to people who kept turning up for work and doing the hard yards. I'll hand over to Andrew.
Thanks very much, Jerome. Andrew Crisp, Emergency Management Commissioner. Well, the weather conditions we're seeing today are somewhat different to what Victorians experienced Thursday night through to Friday morning. So in terms of the weather and what it looks like over the next few days, so we do have stable conditions, quite cool today, but it will be warming up over the next few days to the point on Tuesday, up in the northwest of the state, we'll see temperatures up into the mid-30s. But then what we will see will be another low, another change coming through the state, and we are likely to see significant rainfalls from Wednesday right through to the following weekend. So our emergency services and our distribution businesses in terms of energy are making the most of the milder conditions and the stable conditions at the moment to do the tidy up, to do the clean up that we have to do as a result of the storm event that came through the state. And it's a widespread storm event. So from the far west of the state into metropolitan Melbourne, and then right through to where we've got power at Mallacoota. So significant work by the emergency services, in particular the State Emergency Service as the control agency. What we've seen in terms of their requests for assistance, their numbers, at the moment it's sitting at about 5,100. So an incredible effort. So just to compare that, during that June 9 and 10 flood and storm event, it was about 10,000. But this is a major job for the SES. So at the moment we have about 1,400 RFAs still to be cleared, and they're really predominantly in that area from Berwick down into the Mornington Peninsula. So that's where the main effort is at the moment. What that means for particular units, so the Frankston SES unit has had nearly 400 requests for assistance, Sorrento over a couple of hundred, Hastings similarly, Narre Warren similarly, so there's a lot of effort going on down in that particular area. It's not just the SES, big shout out, a huge thanks to the Country Fire Authority, who have been working really hard over the last couple of days. They've also got strike teams supporting and helping up and cleaning up in those communities at the moment. Also have Forest Fire Manager Victoria, very experienced in the use of chainsaws and doing all that work. So FFM Vic are out there. And then when it comes to the impacts, we actually use Fire Rescue Victoria, so they're undertaking initial impact assessments at the moment. With those 5,000 requests for assistance, can basically be split up into about 4,000 related to trees, so trees down, trees across power lines, across driveways. The other 1,000 is in relation to building damage. And that's everything from quite minor right through to where we know at this stage it's probably about 7 houses that have been assessed as uninhabitable. So we'll continue to undertake those assessments and support, and as local government and others are doing, supporting those families. But I just want to make the point that there are literally hundreds of emergency services out there today doing this clean-up, working very closely, and we saw such an incredible event, incredible effort from local government during that June 9 and 10 flood and storm event by local government. Incredible the work that everyone is doing, and then not to forget the community. Like it's neighbours supporting neighbours, it's communities supporting communities. We know that there has been, given those numbers, there's been a significant drain in terms of ESTA and calls to 132 500. And what I will ask is just to be patient. I know a number of people are still waiting for the SES to turn up, but please be patient. We will get to you as quickly as we can. The number of new jobs are not increasing all that much, but there are still wait times because people are looking for those that advice in relation to callbacks. So again, great work happening in relation to the clean-up itself. we know that the major impact, the most significant consequence has been in relation to energy. So we had a peak yesterday of about 520,000 people, again, across a large part of the state that were off power. At the moment, that's down to about 105,000. So again, incredible effort by the power companies, the distribution businesses to get so many people back on power. But I quite well understand if you're still one of those 105,000, you want to know when your power's going to be back on. So I'd suggest that as a starting point, and I know the distribution businesses are sending out text messages, but you can log on to their website and get some updated advice. We're working very closely with their liaison office in the State Control Centre and pushing them to provide that clarity in relation to when power will be back on. We know that that will happen over the next couple of days, and we'll continue to do the thinking and the planning in relation to what support will be needed to provide to people if there is a longer tail in relation to power coming back on into some of those areas. So we'll continue to focus on that. What we're also seeing over this long weekend is people getting out and about, and it's great to see that we've opened up. We can travel from metropolitan Melbourne into regional Victoria and enjoy everything our great state has to offer. However, it is so important that when you're going to do that, that you plan what you're doing, and you need to think about that in relation to the recent storm event. So we know there has been impacts on a number of our parks where you might have been intending to camp. So can I encourage everyone to just check with the Parks Vic website. Also, there's not been as great an impact on our roads as we saw again in June. However, there are some local road closures. By way of example, the Geelong to Barwon Heads Road is closed and probably will be until tomorrow. So check that Vic Traffic website to get that up-to-date information. And then for information more broadly, I will always plug the Vic Emergency app. If you haven't downloaded, please access that Vic Emergency app. It will help you make those good decisions that you need to make as you travel across the state. Not just now, but when we move into summer proper and we move into what might be more of a fire season for all of us. I do also want to again just thank all our emergency services, local government, our power distribution businesses. Everyone is focused on getting people back on power, cleaning up, getting back to normal. I do particularly, when you think about the SES, it's predominantly a volunteer organisation. So, and similarly with the CFA. So an incredible effort by our volunteers. But I do also want to thank a number of these volunteers are employed by people. So those employers that allow our volunteers to do what they do to keep our community safe. And then, as I've mentioned, no doubt a lot of these families would have been planning a trip away. So it's the families of our volunteers and our emergency services also that are probably staying home this weekend because they're supporting husbands, wives, partners to go out and do what they do so well and keep our communities safe. Thank you. Happy to take any questions now.
In terms of, I know you're still liaising with the power companies, but can you give us a time frame of people looking at 1 day, or could they be up to 3 days before their power is restored, or even longer?
I've looked at the websites myself, and so a lot of them are saying a lot are saying by the end of today and over the next couple of days. But they'll continue to update when because some of it will be tricky, and some of it might run for a couple of days. But everyone is focused on that happening as soon as possible.
Will some of the longer delays in restoring power be in some of the more outer suburbs, or are we seeing inner suburbs really affected by this as well?
Well, we're seeing the inner suburbs as well. At times, it's whether you're at the end of the line or whether you're close to a hub, and we're working very, very closely with the distribution businesses around that. And a priority of us is not just in relation to the energy, but what energy supplies. So it's the telecommunications towers, and we're very, very focused on those communities that might not have access to mobile coverage. So again, we've got police and we've got others going out to make sure where those communities don't have that type of coverage, that there are other ways of them contacting us.
Back at that June storm, there were all those generators that were handed out. Where are they at the moment? Is there a chance that they could be divvied up? Yeah,
that's right. There's 100 generators that were donated to local government, but there's 200 actually sitting in a store in the western suburbs, and we're certainly doing the thinking and the planning around if we need to roll those out to support people if they're going to be off power for an extended period of time.
When do you reckon you'll make a decision on that?
We're thinking through that at the moment. So we know where they are. We've got access to them. It'll be when we get more advice from the distribution business. If we get into sort of that 5-7 days you're going to be off power, then definitely that's when we'll look at kicking that in.
Those 700
houses that are uninhabitable, are they concentrated anywhere or are they spread around?
No, look, there's actually 3 on Beach Road, so, the question before about Metropolitan Melbourne, so the impacts are very much in Metropolitan Melbourne. I believe it was reported in the media yesterday that incredible bloke, the SES unit controller up at Emerald, he lost his house in Cockatoo, so it's dispersed. There's got to be a question for Jerome.
Yeah. Thanks, Oliver. Jerome, why is this the last daily briefing?
Well, let me start by saying the COVID response doesn't change. So we have literally thousands of people out there today. We will have them out there every day, 7 days a week, to do the testing, to do the vaccination, to do the pathology, and of course those frontline healthcare workers today looking after 747 Victorians in hospital, and who will continue to do that job over the weeks and months ahead. So none of what we do changes. I think there is a recognition that we will continue to provide daily updates of information to you. I think the new content at these daily press conferences is getting a bit light. We appreciate that colleagues in the fourth estate in this room probably have other things to go and do, another storyline to start to hunt. And I think for the vast majority of the public, I think people are now moving into a COVID normal situation whereby we need to continue to practice good things, but we're not going to be riveted to the screen or to the online updates of these events in the same way as we were. So I think that's a recognition of that. Of course, if by popular demand you guys want us to all come back and do a daily press conference, then of course we'll always listen to that. But that's not the vibe I'm getting. But can I also just recognise? I know that for thousands of Victorians, these daily opportunities have been a way to understand what's going on within the state, to deal with the anxiety that so many of us feel about what's going on with COVID, as we start to move towards a more stable environment and a clearer way forward. I think we can all now start to become a slightly less fixated maybe on the day-to-day movement of our numbers and the day-to-day ins and outs of what's going on. There'll be plenty of online content, I'm sure, for people to go and chase after to make sure they can stay in touch with what the response is doing. But I think the need to do this in a real life manner every single day is probably not necessary. But for all those being too worried, I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to speak to Brett, to speak to me, to speak to others, for us to update you on the important work that our teams are doing.
How are you feeling about it, Jerome? I mean, obviously you didn't get into this job to become the face of the COVID response.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about stepping back somewhat?
Look, it doesn't feel like that, if I'm honest. I think the job is being out there driving the overarching response. The job that my team and I do, and all the other people you see behind this lectern is to drive this thing 24/7 to make sure we respond as well as we can, to get people vaccinated, to make sure we provide the testing and to keep people safe. That work all continues. The media aspect of my role is a small fragment of what I think I do and what my team does. I might miss the occasional jousting that we do from this lectern, but there'll be other opportunities to engage in that, I'm sure.
You've obviously been called up a lot of Saturday mornings. What are you going to do next Saturday morning?
I'll be logging on, as I always do, 8:15 every Saturday morning. The team gets together. We work through what our priorities are for the day, for the week. That's what I'll be doing next Saturday morning.
That's disappointing for your kids.
It's great for the kids. Well, look, I think my kids are going back to work, so my daughter's back at work today in a retail shop just down the road. So no, I think let's recognise that for thousands of Victorians, this has been a really hard pandemic. We're asking so much of our healthcare workers, we're asking so much of so many people across the state to keep driving these things forward. I think, look, everybody, both the team that I lead and I think all Victorians are excited about, being at 80%, being able to ease off those restrictions, but the hard work continues. We are not out of the woods yet. I don't think anybody needs me to stand up every day to keep sending that message, but there's a long way to go yet before we really get back to having sustained freedoms and we can really start to get on with our lives.
Given that's the case, we are still under restrictions. Will there still be daily updates?
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll be a daily show update. We'll keep issuing our daily updates online in terms of what's happening with the cases and the numbers, what's happening with vaccination. And look, I think there will continue to be regular updates from government, and you'll see a number of the usual faces swinging in and out of those as and when necessary.
And over the past however many months, was there a particular moment that sticks with you that was either particularly difficult or challenging or perhaps even rewarding?
That's an interesting question, Blake. I think the beginning of September was a genuinely challenging time. I think the point at which we realised that all the hard work we've done over so many months to hold COVID down to zero, to deal with all those small outbreaks we had in the first 6 months of this year successfully, I think that recognition at the beginning of September that said actually Delta's different, it's got into our soft underbelly, and it's now spreading in a way that we can no longer control, and we have to shift the strategy. That was a very difficult moment. It was a very challenging moment for a large number of us in the response that said that we have to shift tack and shift strategy. I think where you are now, 2 months down the road, you kind of get to see, but the opportunity that's opened up is that actually we now have a community that's vaccinated, 80% double dose, 92% single dose. We can actually now be proactive about how we move forward and open up, start to reconnect with New South Wales, more importantly, start to reconnect with the rest of the world. So it's been a really hard 2 months. It's been a very challenging 2 months, and it'll be a challenging few months ahead for our healthcare system as we deal with still a very large number of Victorians that haven't yet got vaccinated and that are far more at risk of becoming cases and at far more risk of ending up in hospital.
Jerome, what do you know about the timeline for 90%?
Yep.
Are we on track? I think from memory it was around we were looking at the end of November?
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think we're on track for around 26th of November, I think, is the date we have out there in the roadmap at the moment for 90% fully vaccinated, 12 and over. I mean, so we're, from today, we'll start talking about 12 and over vaccination rates. I'm very confident we'll get to that 90% of 12 and over. We've already got 90% over first dose, so we just need to make sure that people come back and get their second dose. But I remain really ambitious about those remaining first doses we'd like to get out there. Today we've got in the region of 180,000 people in their 20s who are not yet first dose vaccinated. That is a significant body of people that I'd love to get into a vaccination clinic or get in front of their GP and have the GP explain to them, this is what you need to do. Because those 180,000 people in their 20s are going to find it hard to work, are going to find it hard to get to hospital, are going to find it hard to do all the things that you want to do in your 20s. And you just need to get on with it. So there's a lot of work for us to do over the days and weeks ahead to get all those remaining Victorians protected, and that work will carry on well past the 90% mark. We're not going to stop. We've got the booster doses coming in. That was the news of last week. Obviously exciting news overnight with the FDA in the US approving vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds. We'll be hopeful that we get similar directions here in our Commonwealth authorities. So there's an exciting and big program ahead to really, double down on getting COVID out of this place and getting on with our lives.
We received reports that a Year 8 student from Elam College may have passed away due to COVID. Is that something that you guys have been made aware of?
I'm not aware of that. I'd be very keen to understand anything more about that you have.
There's apparently a COVID case at MITRE, the detention centre in Broadmeadows,
Mm-hmm.
and there's still the outbreak at Park Hotel where asylum seekers are detained.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with the protocols in those settings? Did you have an update on those cases?
Yeah, look, certainly in the wider sort of, the Commonwealth Immigration Detention Centre facility, look, we've done a lot of work with them over the last 3 or 4 weeks. They've had, I believe, around 30 odd cases across that facility, and that's been handled as any other outbreak would be. Vaccination levels, I think, are in reasonable shape in that particular facility, and we continue to support those positive cases. I don't have the details on the MITRE case, but again, if you look at the trajectory of our pandemic with 21,000 cases, at some point it's going to get into just about every organisation, every facility. All of us as individuals and all of us as households and all of us as employees will run into COVID over the days, weeks and months ahead. So it's not surprising that we're going to see it come into a place like MITRE. I'd be confident that the teams there have good infection prevention control standards. They're certainly getting a lot of advice from ourselves, and we'll support them on the outbreak as we need to.
And do you know if anyone's been moved from that affected compound in MITRE elsewhere? Like, is there any...
I don't have the details on that. Happy to get someone to check that up for you, but I don't have those details.
Given we have so much vaccine
Blake?
supply at the moment,
Yeah.
if I had my second dose 6 months ago today,
Yeah.
could I walk into one of the hubs and conceivably get my booster shot today, even though it doesn't open until the 8th?
Yeah, Blake, pretty unlikely you be in that case unless you're a healthcare worker or aged over 60, which I don't think you are. But I think in all seriousness, we have around 70,000 people at the moment who are more than 6 months past their second dose. We're working with our health services at the moment to get them ready for that booster dose program that was signed off and agreed by TGA and Atagi only a couple of days ago. We'll be looking forward to making some more announcements about how people can start to access their booster doses. So, to direct to your question, if you're more than 6 months with your second dose, just sit tight for a few more days. We'll issue some very clear guidance in the coming days around how you can access your booster dose, and then we'll start to call people forward to get that done. Obviously, the big part of that program will be in the early part of next year. The vast majority of us got our second dose in that July to October window, so that'll be the big focus in about 4 months' time to get that through.
Jerome, lawyers for the health department have lodged an appeal to overturn an order to release secret briefings used to justify lockdowns. Do you know
Right.
why that is?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, or a chief health officer, in fact. Look, my understanding is there is a matter before the courts at the moment with regard to release of reports from OVIC. My understanding is that pertains to legal advice provided to the department or by the department in that action. That's all I have on that at the moment. But look, there's a matter before the courts. They don't need my advice to work their way through that one.
When does the COVID response commander's job finish?
Not for a while yet, I'm afraid, Blake. So look, I haven't. Yeah, let's be clear. You know, I'm not hanging up the jacket yet, or I'll probably go through a ceremonial burning at some point. But we're not quite there yet. Look, if I look at the phases of work ahead of us, we need to get the community to 90% double dose vaccination. That should be by the end of November. Absolutely. We'd love to go further than that. We've got to work through the booster dose program. We've then got to look at 5 to 11-year-olds and getting them vaccinated. And we still have the highest levels of COVID cases that we've ever seen in this entire pandemic. 21,000 active cases out there. All those people need support. And we need to continue to drive those cases over the coming weeks and months ahead. I think that's going to be a very busy and challenging time. We will then be looking, when we get into the early part of next year, we'll start to look at what are the preparations for the autumn and the winter going to be. You know, we're currently obviously watching the Northern Hemisphere with great interest to see how their pandemic is going to turn out, what that winter dynamic looks like, and we'll need to have plans in place for here. We'd all love to see less of the COVID commander. I know my kids would. We'd all love to see that role and the wider response be able to go back into the background. That will happen, I suspect, in the months ahead, but we need to make sure we've got the whole thing locked down properly before he walks off.
You mentioned Halloween themes at the
Yeah.
vaccination clinics. Can you just explain what like decorations are?
Yeah, look, I mean, one of the highlights, back to Blake's earlier question, one of the highlights of the last couple of months has been the enthusiasm and the energy that younger Victorians have shown for vaccination. You know, we've got 84% of kids 12 to 15 first dose vaccinated. Those in their 20s, again, 84% first dose vaccinated. So they've gone that really, really quickly. I mean, the rest of us took a bit of a time to get to our levels, but there is more to go. So we'll grab any opportunity we can to appeal to anybody we can to come forward and get vaccinated. So if the ghosts and ghouls amongst us want to get vaccinated now's a good time to go and do it. There's some good Halloween stuff. Certainly the exhibition building looks pretty amazing. Some of the other centres have gone down the pumpkin route. We just use anything to get people connected into why vaccination is important.
Done.
Is that it? Are we done? Can I finally then say two things? One is a huge thanks to the online audience for these events over many months, and we really appreciate your attention, your energy, your engagement with the conversations we've been having, and that conversation will continue in various ways and places. But my thanks for your time and energy and support over that period of time. Also to colleagues in the room here, you've dragged your way all around Melbourne and Victoria to come to these events, and my thanks for your critical reporting at this time and the reassurance and visibility you provide to the public around what's going on with this pandemic without fear or favour. And I really respect and appreciate the way that you have all done that and your colleagues have done that over a very long time indeed. And finally, the behind the scenes team, our colleagues from Auslan, our colleagues in the various media teams, all the people behind the scenes who make these things work, the guys who set the systems up, my thanks to them. This has been a huge team effort, and you've all been an amazing part of it. Thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thanks, Ralph.
What happens to the blue walls? What's that? You sell that off?
We're going to sell it off. So hard,
Camera on it.
I know, we're good. There was a previously sickly version as well, so we've got rid of that one. So.